بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد قال الإمام الحافظ أبو عيسى الترمذي رحمه الله تعالى باب ما جاء في الرخصة في السمن بعد العشاء. وقال قبل ذلك باب ما جاء في كراهية النوم قبل العشاء والسمن بعدها. حدثنا أحمد بن منيع قال حدثنا هشيم قال أخبرنا عوف قال أحمد وحدثنا عباد بن عباد هو المهلبي وإسماعيل بن علية جميعا عن عوف عن سيار بن سلامة هو أبو المنهال الرياحي عن أبي برزة قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يكره النوم قبل العشاء والحديث بعدها. قال وفي الباب عن عائشة وعبد الله بن مسعود وأنس. قال أبو عيسى حديث أبي برزة حديث حسن صحيح، وقد كره أهل العلم النوم قبل صلاة العشاء والحديث بعدها ورخص في ذلك بعضهم. وقال عبد الله بن المبارك أكثر الأحاديث على الكراهية، ورخص بعضهم في النوم قبل صلاة العشاء في رمضان. وسيار بن سلامة هو أبو المنهال الرياحي. It states here in the Jami' of Imam at-Tirmidhi rahimahullah, the chapter of Salah, the chapter of prayer. He says, باب ما جاء في كراهية النوم قبل صلاة العشاء والسمر بعدها. He says the hadiths that are mentioned regarding two things. The first is sleeping before Salatul-Isha, and the second is staying up after Salatul-Isha. Sleeping before the Isha prayer and staying up after the Isha prayer. He says the chapter of the hadiths that are narrated from the Prophet ﷺ regarding this being a bad thing, regarding this being looked down upon Islamically, to sleep before Isha and to stay up after Al-Isha. The hadiths that talk about the dispraise of a Muslim to take a nap or to go to sleep before it's time for Isha, and for a Muslim to stay up at night after Salatul-Isha. Everyone stay with me, inshallah ta'ala. Hadith number 168, he mentions his sanad, as we always try to introduce to the people, his chain of narration. Imam at-Tirmidhi, rahimahullah, he reports from his teacher that goes back to the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, the companion Abu Barza al-Aslami, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He said, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يكره النوم قبل العشاء. That the Prophet ﷺ used to dislike two things: people sleeping before Isha, والحديث بعدها, and people staying up and talking after Al-Isha. People staying up and talking after Al-Isha. So that's the hadith. Then At-Tirmidhi rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وفي الباب, he says, and there are other hadiths regarding this topic that have been reported by other companions, such as Aisha, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, and Anas bin Malik. He then says, in this hadith here, Hasanun Sahih, is an authentic narration. This goes to show you the benefits that they get from this book, At-Tirmidhi, for the student of knowledge, for the scholar, and also for the layman. The everyday Muslim can open this book and get a benefit. Is that it's not just one companion that reported the Prophet saying this. So if there's several hadiths on a topic, then that theoretically means, it's an important topic. There's several hadiths on it. That's not always the case. It may be more than one hadith which is not authentic. We're talking about as a default. As a default. Everybody understand this? If a man had 4 sons, and 3 of those sons all reported to him saying the same thing, it goes to show you that he said that statement, or that was his constant practice. The oldest son said it, the baby son said it, the middle son said it. That was something that Pops used to what? He used to always say. So that obviously means that it was, in most cases, something that was what? Important. All of the words of the Prophet are important. But we're talking about being authentically traced back to the Prophet. So, he says that there are narrations from Aisha, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, and Anas. That's the first fa'idah. The second fa'idah is that Imam at-Tirmidhi himself, he gives you the grade of the hadith. And Imam at-Tirmidhi is a dependent upon scholar, that it's more than sufficient for the layman to trust and to base his ruling upon. At-Tirmidhi is a disciple of Imam al-Bukhari. He himself says, Hasanun Sahih. The hadith is authentic, it's sound. He then says, and he talks about the fiqh of the hadith now. And it's a third fa'idah. This goes to show you that Tirmidhi's book is the what? The most what? Comprehensive. Well, if that's what you want to say, pound for pound is the what? He says the best fighter, what? Pound for pound. He may not be the heaviest hitter, the flashiest, but he's pound for what? Pound for pound, the best. At-Tirmidhi's book is the most beneficial of the 6 books. Pound for pound. Is the most. هل أصح الكتب؟ لا ما قلنا هذا. عرفت؟ أجملها وأحسنها ترتيبا وتنسيقا؟ لا ما قلنا هذا كتاب مسلم. أجمعها للأحاديث للمسائل الفقهية؟ لا ما قلنا هذا كتاب أبي داود مثلا. أصح الكتب بعد الصحيحين هذا كتاب النسائي. أكثرها زوائد هذا كتاب ابن ماجه. لكن أجمعها في الفقه، في الجرح والتعديل، في الصناعة الحديثية، في التخريج، في هذا كتاب الترمذي بلا شك. أجمعها وأشملها. The most comprehensive, pound for pound, beneficial book of the 6 is what? Tirmidhi's book. Does it mean it's the most authentic? More authentic than Bukhari? No. It has more subtle benefits, but it didn't say that. But pound for pound is the what? Is the best, is the most beneficial book of the 6. So Tirmidhi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, speaking on the fiqh of the hadith, he says, in the people of knowledge, they hold the view that's based off of this hadith. In other words, the hadith is not mansukh, it's not abrogated. The hadith is not specific. He says this was the view of the people of knowledge as well. So he's showing you the application of hadith and what? Fiqh. In one hand. Because there may be some hadiths that were specific to the Prophet. There may be some hadith that was specific to the time of the Prophet. Mathalan. There may be some hadiths in which were abrogated. There may be some hadiths in which companions unanimously agreed upon, don't act upon it in its literal sense. But he's now showing you Ahlul Ilm, yani he's talking about the Salaf. The early ulama, the scholars of Islam, he's saying that they took that view as well. And they looked down upon a person to sleep before Isha prayer and for a person to stay up and talk after the Isha prayer. He then says, وَرَخَّصَ فِي ذَلِكَ بَعْضُهُمْ. And he says, and others, they said that it's permissible. Rakhasa. They give a rukhsa. They say it's okay. And this goes to show you that the word kariha, they disliked. It doesn't mean makruh على اصطلاح المتأخرين. الذي هو يعني الشيء يعني تركه أحسن وأولى. لكن حتى لو أنت فعلت ليس هناك ذنب. لا هم أطلقوا الكراهة بمعنى إيش؟ تحريم. كل ذلك كان سيئه عند ربك مكروها محرم. الشرك، عقوق الوالدين، قتل النفس بغير حق، هذه أشياء محرمة بلا شك بالإجماع. So the early ulama, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, they use the word makruh, and they meant what? Haram. They meant haram. They meant haram. Many of them, in the early generations, they used the word makruh, and they meant what? Haram. And this is a tremendous benefit. You may find Abu Hanifa being asked a question, مثلا التوسل, asking Allah through the rights of someone. Allahumma inni as'aluka bihaqqi fulan alayk. Oh Allah, the status of this saint with you, I ask you to forgive me. Abu Hanifa was asked, he says, akrahu an yu'adhama al-makhluq. He says, I dislike for a creature to be given this status, for this to be done with his grave, or for his name to be mentioned like this in a dua. And then the son says, just makruh. No. Abu Hanifa is saying that it's what? Haram. And then in the 4th century, 5th century, 6th century, the later scholars, they use the word makruh to mean what? Just disliked. You don't have to stay away from it. You don't have to stay away from it. So it goes to show, now I'm talking about usul al-fiqh now. Huh? So he says, rakhasa. So if they make a rukhsa, then that proves that it was initially haram. If they gave a concession after it being what? Everybody understand this? He says, so some of the people of knowledge, they said that it's permissible. Now just stay with me. Be patient. He says, وَقَالَ Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. And now he's giving you the fiqh of Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, who doesn't necessarily have a madrasa, a school. There's no one who says, I'm Mubaraki. He says, I'm Hanafi, Shafi'i, Maliki, Zahiri, Zaydi, whatever the case may be. He says, Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, who lived and died in the 2nd century. We all know who Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak was, hopefully. If you don't know who he is, you need to read about him. You need to what? You need to read about Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak and his tremendous life. And he was from the Muslims that some of the ulama of Islam said, Jumi'at fihi khisal al-khayr. Jumi'at fihi khisal al-khayr. They say he was a mujahid, a scholar. He was a spender. He was a prayer. He was an ascetic. Kullu shay. They say he was everything. The law gave him everything. Well-rounded in everything. So you read about this man's life. Perhaps you may get inspiration from Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. And also read about his father, which many people don't read about Abdullah ibn Mubarak's father. Read about his father and who his father was, and how his son came about from the humble status of his father. Very life-changing story, inshallah. So Tirmidhi gives you a fa'idah about Abdullah ibn Mubarak's opinion and madhab. And this is important because, as we said, there were many ulama who lived with Imam Malik, Abu Hanifa, Shafi, Ahmed, that were equal to them, or greater than them, or beneath them. But we say at least they were, because they were scholars, who their madhab didn't survive. Everybody understand? They said faded away, became extinct, because they had weak students, huh, Ahmed? The strength of a school and the teachings is only based off of the strength of the what? The disciple. Everybody understand this? This is very important for us to understand this. Layth ibn Sa'd, rahimahullah, the great alim of Egypt, they used to say about him, كان أفقه من مالك وألزم للأثر أفقه وأتبع للسنة لكن أصحابه خذلوه. They would say the Layth ibn Sa'd كان أفقه, he had more knowledge than Malik. And they would say he was closer to the sunnah than Imam Malik. Many Muslims, they become offended if you say this. But this is the truth. This is what they said. And he wrote letters to Imam Malik. You'll find them documented in the books in which he debated and refuted Malik on issues. He says, but his students, they didn't support him. They didn't stand behind him. He had students that came and went. They weren't devoted. So they didn't take what he said and what? Classify and categorize what? And lay out his madhab to the next generation. So Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, rahimahullah, the great scholar of fiqh, the great scholar of hadith, he himself had views, ara fiqhiyah. He had opinions, he had students. So why do I have to follow Abu Hanifa's statement if I can take Abdullah ibn Mubarak's statement? Everybody understand this? So this book, Tirmidhi, gives us this fa'idah. It has gems that may be lost. You said what? Lost what? Everybody understand this? Clear this or not? Lost gems that can't be put in one specific book. So he quotes now from Abdullah ibn Mubarak. When he was asked about this, he says, أكثر الحديث على الكراهية. He says, my opinion is most of the hadiths look down upon it. In other words, he didn't take the view that says that it's okay. Based off of most of the what? Hadiths, not all of them. This goes to show another fa'idah, which is the true fiqh is based off of the what? The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And that was his main staple move. Most hadiths say this, that's what I'm sticking with. That's what? That's what I'm sticking with. Here it says, وَرَخَّصَ بَعْضُهُمْ فِي النَّوْمِ قَبْلَ صَلَاةِ الْعِشَاءِ فِي رَمَضَانِ. He says, and some ulama, they held the view that it was permissible to take a nap before Isha in Ramadan. That you could sleep in Ramadan before Isha, for obvious reasons. To have the ability to pray and to stand at night, etc. And to reap the benefits of Ramadan. And then he speaks about one of the narrators, whose name is Sayyar ibn Salama, whose name is Abu al-Minhal al-Riyahi. So this goes to show you how many issues we just went through, I mean. Countless issues. Just from one small chapter in Imam al-Tirmidhi's book. Now, the next chapter will make things even clearer. Hold on. At-Tirmidhi, he says, باب ما جاء في الرخصة في السمر بعد العشاء. حدثنا أحمد بن منيع قال حدثنا أبو معاوية عن الأعمش عن إبراهيم عن علقمة عن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يسمر مع أبي بكر في الأمر من أمر المسلمين وأنا معهما. وفي الباب عن عبد الله بن عمرو وأوس بن حذيفة وعمران بن حسين قال أبو عيسى حديث عمر حديث حسن. وقد روى هذا الحديث الحسن بن عبيد الله عن إبراهيم عن علقمة عن رجل من جعفي يقال له قيس أو ابن قيس عن عمر عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم هذا الحديث في قصة طويلة. وقد اختلف أهل العلم من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم والتابعين ومن بعدهم في السمر بعد صلاة العشاء الآخرة. فكره قوم منهم السمر بعد صلاة العشاء. ورخص بعضهم إذا كان في معنى العلم وما لا بد منه من الحوائج. وأكثر الحديث على الرخصة. وقد روي عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا سمر إلا لمصل أو مسافر. The next chapter says the permission, the allowance to stay up after Salatul-Isha. Obviously, the exact opposite of the previous what? Chapter. He then quotes with his sanad that goes back to Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And Umar, he said that one night the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or he says not even one night, he says Kana Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would stay up with Abu Bakr fil amri min amri al-muslimin wa ana ma'ahuma. They would stay up at night time and they would discuss the general affairs of the Muslims. They would discuss the general affairs of the what? Of the Muslims. The state, the zakat, the sadaqah, what battle, war, jihad, the munafiqeen, the orphans of Medina, whatever the case may be, the pact with the Jews of Medina, the affairs of the Muslims. They would stay up. They said they stood up and they spoke on this issue. And Umar said, and I was what? I was with them. So before we go further, this hadith proves that it's what? Permissible to stay up after Isha, talking and discussing something which is what? Important and beneficial. Everybody clear on this? So I'm going to show you one hadith explains the what? Another hadith. Accepted as understood as a what? As a thorough whole. As a thorough whole. At Tirmidhi he says, and there are other hadiths reported by Abdullah ibn Amr and Aus ibn Hudayfa and Imran ibn Hussein, just like the previous hadith. It's more companions. There are more companions who narrated the same report. At Tirmidhi says this hadith is Hasan. It's Hasan. What does Imam Tirmidhi mean when he says Hasan? Does he mean what the later scholars say Hasan? Hafid bin Hajar, Al-Dhahabi, Al-Iraqi, Al-Albani, Ahmed Shakir, when they say Hasan? Or is his Hasan different? It is unjust to say that Tirmidhi is mutasahil. He says Hasan Kayf, how is it Hasan? And look at their sanad. La. At-Tirmidhi, when he uses the word Hasan, he has a specific meaning and a specific depiction in his book. In his what? In his book. Not going deeper into that. He then goes on to say that there's a very long story and another version of this report until the point in which he says, dealing with the issue in deeper depth, he says, and the people of knowledge from the companions and the tabi'een and those who came after them, they differed on this issue, as we previously explained. He said they what? They differed on this issue. And it goes to show you once more is that the true fiqh and the true ilm, the true ulama, the true fiqh of it starts where? The Sahaba and the Tabi'een, and not the opposite way, as many people today. It doesn't start now to then, it starts from the opposite way. That's the asl of fiqh. The asl of fiqh is fiqh salaf. Just like we say aqidah to salaf, we also say what? Fiqh salaf. It's not just pertaining to aqidah. No, everything, taking it back to the old, the what? The ancient ways as the default. Then you work your way up. Then you what? Then you work your way up. Everybody understand this? And I cannot express in words, Ahmed, how important this is. How important this is. You asked a question about tama'im last night. Talismans. You want to study the aqidah? Of course you take the foundation. You take the basic, clear principles from the summarized books as a beginner. But that's it. After you've studied a few basic books, you have a good basic understanding, then you go and you read the narrations of the Sahaba and the Tabi'een and what they said and what they did and how they interacted with the text. That's the proper way, inshallah ta'ala. The fiqh salaf. He then says here, he says they differ on this issue. Some of them, as we previously said, they said it is don't stay up after Salatul-Isha. And others they say it's permissible, it is fine if it's fi ma'na al-ilm وَمَا لَا بُدَّ مِنْهُ مِنَ الْحَوَائِجِ. As long as a person is studying or does something which is beneficial. Something that you have to do, you have to take care of. And if that's not the case, then a person shouldn't stay up what? After Salatul-Isha. Now one may say, why is this? Obviously, sleeping before Salatul-Isha, they say a person fears and one will oversleep for Isha. And the Prophet ﷺ told us about the virtue of Isha and Fajr and how it's from the hardest prayers upon the munafiqeen. Also, sleeping or staying up after Salatul-Isha, one may not get up and pray at night. And one may miss Salatul Fajr and not pray Fajr. Now, this hadith here, it goes to show you how many of our daily practices are in contrast to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And it goes to show you the lack of balance and the extremism of many people. And how many people, the average person today, is not willing, is unwilling, let alone is incapable of practicing what he preaches. And lashing out against Muslims saying, they're not upon the Sunnah. We're upon the Sunnah, they're not upon the Sunnah. Do you know what it means when you say upon the Sunnah? Every aspect of your life is supposed to be governed by this. So let me ask yourself a question, Yahi. How many nights do you stay after Salatul-Isha? If I ask them, I don't know, how many would he say? Probably every what? Talking about ilm and the affairs of the Muslims? No, Netflix. Finals, March Madness. Whack at that. And then he say what? You're what? He's not what? He's not a Sunnah. I am. So if you practice 3 things from the sunnah, and you leave off other things, this Muslim here, he has nothing that he's doing from the sunnah. It's nothing that he did from the sunnah. Of course, it's not a Muslim except that he has something from what? There's no doubt about that. So what makes you on the sunnah, not him, and him off, and not you? Everyone understand this? Talk is what? Cheap, as they say. Very cheap. So it's a responsibility when you say that, when you make that claim, to learn and to practice. I mean, how many people you know they're going to ready to implement this right now? After Salatul-Isha, do what? Go to sleep. Abdul, do how many people? Let alone Netflix, huh? Allah al-Musta'an. This is the reality. This is the what? This is the reality. So we have to be mindful of this, huh? He says here, in Tirmidhi, the next fact, he says, وَأَكْثُرُ الْحَدِيثِ عَلَى الرُّخْصَةِ. He says, and most hadiths prove that it is permissible, i.e. contrast to the statement of who? Ibn Mubarak, assent. That's another fact. It shows that Tirmidhi, with all due respect, did not just what? Submit with Ibn al-Mubarak, as we hear today. Sheikh says it, what? Khalas. Astaghfirullah. That's Ibn al-Mubarak. You know who he is? وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ? Ibn al-Mubarak. Who will make you understand what Ibn al-Mubarak is? And in Tirmidhi, he says the what? Exact opposite. So it goes to show that there's no man's statement that's written in gold except for Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And even his hadiths are understood and interpreted, general and specific, etc. Ibn al-Mubarak clearly says, al-karahiyya, and the Tirmidhi says what? Al-rukhsa. There is no taqdees. You don't worship nobody and put somebody on a pedestal in which you lose your critical, meticulous investigation. He said it, that's it, khalas. Let's hack it. And if you want to be pleased with that level of being a donkey with a carrot in front of you, tayyib, that's fine. لكن لا تفرضه على الآخرين. Don't put that upon the rest of the people. Everybody understand this? If you're pleased with that, that's fine. Don't what? Don't put that upon the rest of the people, and don't be fanatical, Abdul Wadud. You're fanatical. If that's your sheikh, tayyib, la bas. But don't be what? Don't be a fanatic and lash out upon other people for not taking your position and being a staunch bigot. Tirmidhi, he then says, and it's also been reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, قَدْ رُوِيَ, it's been reported, لَا سَمَرَةٍ. He says there should be no staying up at night, إِلَّا لِمُصَلٍّ, except for someone who's offering prayer, أو مسافر, or someone who's traveling. Someone who's what? Traveling. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. We ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow our lifestyles to be upon the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, living in these days and times. Wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah.